My sister treated me like unpaid childcare, so I showed her how costly family obligation really gets. She left her son at my door in the dead of winter. Now she's got restraining orders, lost custody, and I've got the only thing that matters, my life back. I got home late Thursday night, exhausted from a long shift in traffic that crawled like it was personally mocking me. The Denver air had that weird chill it gets before the snow starts teasing you, and all I wanted was to heat up the last of my curry and zone out in front of the TV. I kicked off my boots, dropped my keys in the dish, and pulled the container out of the fridge. It was barely in the microwave before the doorbell rang. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. It was Madeline. My sister stood there in a cream wool coat that probably cost more than my couch, makeup perfect, heels like she came from a photo shoot instead of a parking lot. In one hand was a laptop bag, in the other a color-coded binder. Pink taps, blue taps, yellow. She let herself in without waiting. "Elise," she said, all brisk and businesslike, "I'm so glad you're still up. What are you doing here?" I managed, holding my curry like a shield. She swept into the living room like she owned the place, setting her laptop bag down and opening the binder on my coffee table. "We need to go over the coverage schedule." "The what now?" "Coverage. For Leo." She said it like this was some known operation between us. "Nights, weekends, federal holidays. I've already broken it down by week." I blinked. "Coverage for?" She turned the binder toward me. "Here, this is January through April. Red are weekends. Green are nights. Purple is for major holidays and school closures." I couldn't even process the words fast enough. "Wait, are you asking me to babysit Leo?" "No," she said as if insulted. "I'm asking you to co-parent responsibly, while I pursue professional opportunities." "You said you'd help." "I said I'd help, not sign on as his secondary guardian." Madeline looked at me like I was being ridiculous. "You told me verbatim that I could count on you for anything. You even posted on the company intranet about how you were stepping up for your family." "I what?" She opened her laptop. "Here." Click, and there it was, my own words. "Proud to support my sister as she transitions back into the workforce. Family means showing up even when it's inconvenient." I stared at it, nauseated. I'd written that after she cried on the phone last month. I thought she was just talking about an occasional night out or emergency backup. "Not this, Madeline," I said slowly. "This looks like a full-time custody agreement." She smiled like I just caught up to something she already signed off with the notary. "Exactly, but informal, of course. I'm not trying to put pressure on you." I couldn't say no. Not really. Not with her looking at me like I was the only person keeping her dream alive. Not with that post hanging over my head like a promise I'd already made. She didn't even ask. She assumed. That's how she operated. So I nodded. Just a small one. Barely there. But she caught it. Closed the binder with a victorious snap. "Perfect," she said. "You're a lifesaver." And just like that, the trap was sprung. By the time the microwave dinged, my appetite was gone. I stood in the quiet of my own kitchen, staring at a weeknight meal that suddenly felt like the last normal moment I'd get for a long time. The meeting was supposed to be the biggest pitch of my quarter, maybe even my year. Our aerospace partner, Draxon Systems, had flown in from Seattle, and I'd been prepping for 2 weeks straight. Deck was tight, projections were sharp, and I even wore heels for the first time in months. I got in early, set up the conference room with fresh coffee and the welcome packets, and double-checked the slide deck for the 5th time. This was it, my shot. If it landed, I'd have a case for promotion by spring. At exactly 10 o'clock, I launched into the presentation. "Thank you all for coming. Draxon's trust means a lot to our logistics division." I was 2 slides in when the receptionist knocked on the glass wall. I gave her a polite smile and tried to keep going, but she knocked again, this time holding a clipboard and mouthing something I couldn't catch. I froze. "Excuse me," I said to the group, forcing a smile. "Give me just one moment." I stepped out and closed the door behind me. "Is everything okay?" The receptionist looked nervous. "There's a child at the front desk. Says his name is Leo. Your nephew? Your sister dropped him off just now." I blinked. "What?" "She said you were watching him today. She had a reflexology appointment." "Reflexology? On a Tuesday morning? She left already?" I asked, but I already knew the answer. "She was in and out in 30 seconds. Said you'd know what to do." My stomach dropped. I rushed to the lobby, and there he was, Leo, 5 years old, hair sticking up in the back, wearing a dinosaur hoodie and Velcro sneakers. He was holding a half-eaten granola bar and his backpack. "Hey bud," I said, trying to sound cheerful while rage simmered just under my skin. "Mom said I'm hanging with you today," he said like it was totally normal. "She has to go get her feet fixed." I forced a smile. Cool. Super cool. There was no one to call. No backup. I couldn't exactly tell my company's aerospace partners to hold on while I figured out emergency childcare. So I brought him back with me. I set him up just outside the meeting room with my tablet and headphones. I turned the volume down, gave him a juice box, and told him to sit quietly like it was a game. For about 5 minutes it worked. Then slide 4 hit and so did Leo literally. He burst into the room mid-sentence, holding up the tablet. Aunt Elise, this thing froze. Look, I stopped cold. Everyone turned. Buddy, not now, go sit down, okay? I whispered, trying not to look panicked, but I can't make the dinosaur roar. Polite laughter from one of the investors. The rest shifted uncomfortably. I guided him back out, cheeks burning, heart pounding in my ears. When I returned, the energy had shifted. I pushed through the rest of the pitch, but I could feel it. That tight, awkward sense that professionalism had just left the room. It didn't matter how solid my numbers were. What they'd remember was the 5-year-old with the tablet, the juice box, and the very loud dinosaur app. After the meeting, my boss pulled me aside. They liked your ideas, she said. But next time, let's make sure personal stuff stays outside the glass. Yeah, I said, nodding. Of course. I smiled like everything was fine. But inside something cracked. Madeline didn't just dump Leo on me. She sabotaged me. And she did it without blinking. The retirement gala was being held at the Denver Botanic Gardens. I'd spent the afternoon practicing my speech in the mirror, triple-checking the phrasing, adjusting my dress until I felt like I might actually pull off being polished. It wasn't just a work event, it was personal. Linda Cho, my mentor for nearly a decade, was retiring, and I had been asked to deliver the tribute toast. Linda was the reason I was still in this industry. She taught me how to speak up in meetings, how to claim space without apology, how to survive the petty politics of logistics with my dignity intact. This night meant everything to me. I arrived early, heels clicking against the tile as I walked into the softly lit atrium. The tables were dressed in navy linens, with silver and white orchids floating in glass bowls. I took a breath and reminded myself, I belonged here. And then 20 minutes before the toast, my phone buzzed. Madeline, hey, dropping Leo off. Just for tonight. Can't find a sitter. That was it. No question. No request. Just a declaration. I stared at the screen in disbelief. I texted back. Are you serious? No response. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I stood frozen, phone in hand, feeling the hum of the gala around me. Soft music, clinking glasses, laughter, and none of it reached me. Because I knew exactly what was coming. I left the ballroom, heart pounding, and headed for the entrance. I spotted him instantly. Leo was curled up in one of the chairs near the coat check, his little dinosaur backpack slumped next to him. He was asleep, wearing pajamas under his coat, one sock missing, face flushed and hair messy. A crumpled note was taped to his bag. Please feed him if he wakes up. He didn't finish dinner. Thanks him. I felt everything drain out of me at once. I crouched beside him and brushed a hand over his hair. His cheek was warm. Too warm. He stirred and mumbled something about crackers. I pulled off his coat, and that's when I saw them. Bruises. On his upper arm. Small, dark, and in a pattern that didn't look like falling off a swing or bumping into a door. Something in me broke. I picked him up carefully, holding him against my chest as he snuggled into my shoulder. I walked him to the private lounge off the ballroom, set him on the plush sofa, and grabbed my phone. I looked at the clock. My toast was starting in 3 minutes. I looked back at Leo. His face was peaceful, but his little hand clung to my sleeve like a lifeline. And that was it. I didn't go back in. I missed the toast. I missed the group photo. I missed Linda's final speech, the champagne send-off, the farewell hugs. Nobody even noticed. Later, I texted Linda to apologize. I told her there was a family emergency. She wrote back a kind, brief reply. But I knew the moment was gone. I sat in that side room for an hour, holding Leo while he slept, staring at the bruises, feeling a cold fury seep into my bones. This wasn't just about me being taken advantage of. This was neglect. This was something deeper. And Madeline had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I wasn't just the backup anymore. I was the only one who seemed to care that this kid was being left behind. The trip to Finland had been my dream for years. Not the touristy parts. No saunas or northern lights selfies. I wanted solitude, cold air and quiet forests. A chance to think, to breathe without somebody else's crisis filling the space. I booked the cabin 6 months ago. Non-refundable. Off-grid. I hadn't told anyone in the family until now. We were all seated around my dad's dining room table for Sunday dinner. Me, Madeline, Dad, and Leo, who was drawing on a paper placemat with a dry marker. Madeline had just gotten back from a yoga retreat, wearing flowy white pants and that smug, post-enlightenment glow. Halfway through the meal, between the overcooked pork roast and a weird silence about Leo's new bruise, now mostly yellow, Madeline cleared her throat and said, "So, I'll be heading to a wellness center in Taos next week. Solo retreat, digital detox, the works." I didn't look up. She went on, "I need some real healing space. It's a big deal for me." That's when she turned to me. "So you'll take Leo that week, right?" I blinked. "What? You're not working next week," she said. "Didn't you say you were taking some time off?" I laughed, short and dry. "Yeah, for my trip. I'm going to Finland." "You knew that." Madeline waved a hand like I'd said I was going to the grocery store. "You can reschedule. This is more important." I put my fork down. "No," I said, calm but firm. "I'm not rescheduling. Dad looked up from his plate like he just realized the food was cold. What's the big deal, Elise? Your sister needs support. I've been supporting her for 6 months, I said. My turn. Madeline tilted her head. Are you serious? Dead serious. There was a pause, like they were all waiting for the part where I caved, like always. When I didn't, Madeline's voice turned sharp. So you're just abandoning him? I stood up. No, I said. I'm finally saying no to being treated like the default option. You had 6 months to figure this out. Dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Selfish. That word hit like a slap. Classic Dad. Ex-military, emotionless, and full of duty talk, unless it applied to him. I've canceled plans, taking calls at midnight, left work for daycare pickups I didn't agree to, I said, keeping my voice steady. I missed Linda's gala because your daughter decided she had a just-for-tonight emergency. And you know what? Not once have either of you said thank you. Leo looked up at me wide-eyed. I turned to him and softened. You're okay, buddy, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. Then I looked back at Madeline. You figure it out. I'm going to Finland. I picked up my coat and my keys. Nobody moved. As I walked out the door, I could feel their silence behind me like a second skin. Not rage, not guilt, just the quiet vacuum of people who couldn't believe I'd finally stopped playing along. But I wasn't scared anymore. I had said no, and I knew somehow I wasn't going to get away with it. The morning of my flight, I woke up before the alarm. Still dark out. I had a list by the door: passport, power bank, trail boots, printed cabin directions in case the Finnish SIM didn't activate right away. I was finally going. I was zipping my suitcase when I heard the knock. Not a regular knock, a single urgent bang. Then silence. I opened the door in my pajamas. Leo stood on my porch. Alone. Mismatched pajamas, no shoes, curls wild and damp from the snow, cheeks blotchy with cold. A sticky note was pinned to his coat. Thanks, sis. I know you'll do the right thing. I blinked. For a second I just froze. Then everything snapped into motion. Oh my God, Leo. Come inside. His feet were red. He was shivering. I wrapped him in a blanket and sat him on the couch. Got the heat cranked up. Put socks on his feet, then mine. My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice even. You okay, buddy? Did your mom say anything? He nodded slowly. She said you were taking me to the snow house. The snow house, Finland. I felt sick. I pulled up my security app, fast-forwarded the camera footage from the porch. Found it. Madeline's car, 4:03 a.m. She didn't even get out of the driver's seat. She popped the back door. Leo climbed out carrying a backpack and she drove off. Didn't wait to see if the porch light came on. Didn't even look back. Just gone. I sat there for a long minute watching the video loop, hands shaking. Then I called CPS. I didn't think, I just did it. The caseworker came 2 hours later. Leo was still on the couch, watching cartoons and eating toast with strawberry jam, like it was any other day. But he kept checking the front door. Is she coming back? He asked. No, I said and meant it. The caseworker's name was Maya. She was calm, gentle with him, professional with me. Asked if I could take temporary guardianship until they processed the situation. I agreed before she finished the sentence. We packed Leo's tiny bag properly. She filled out paperwork, took photos of the note, of the porch footage, of the bruise still fading on his arm. She told me what to expect in the next 72 hours. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the spot where Leo had been standing. Madeline didn't text, didn't call, nothing. By noon I had already canceled my flight. The airline agent was weirdly sympathetic, like she could hear it in my voice. I spent the next 3 days compiling everything. Screenshots, timestamps, emails, photos of the schedule she dumped on me, logs of the drop-offs at work. I even found the internet post she'd weaponized and printed it for the record. No one called me. Not Madeline. Not Dad. Not even a fake apology or guilt trip. It was like I had stopped existing. Except I hadn't. Not to Leo. That first night, after bath and 2 books, he came out of his room while I was cleaning up dinner. I like your house, he said quietly. Thanks, I said, crouching down. You're safe here, okay? That's all that matters. He nodded. Can we get waffles tomorrow? I smiled. Absolutely. He hugged me, just a quick, awkward wraparound, but it stunned me. Not because he hugged me, because I realized how long it had been since anyone had. It happened on a Thursday. I had just gotten Leo down for a nap. He was fighting a cold and finally curled up with his stuffed octopus on the couch when there was a knock at the door. This time it wasn't a 4 a.m. drop-off. It was louder, meaner. I looked through the peephole. Madeline, and behind her Dad. My stomach turned to stone. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me, leaving Leo safe inside. I didn't want him to hear this. Madeline's arms were crossed, eyes blazing. Dad stood stiffly beside her in a press jacket, lips tight. You had no right, Madeline snapped. Calling child services? Really, Elise? I had every right, I said. You abandoned your son in freezing weather at 4 in the morning. I have the footage. That was a misunderstanding, she hissed. You made it something bigger. Dad stepped forward. We don't air our dirty laundry to strangers, Elise. That's family rule number 1. Funny, I said. Because rule number 1 for me is don't leave a 5-year-old barefoot in the snow. Madeline's voice sharpened. You think you're a hero now? You think this makes you better than me? No, I said calmly. But it makes me the only adult who gave a damn. She moved like she was going to walk past me and into the house, but I blocked the door. "You're not coming in." Elise Dad's voice turned hard. "Don't push this." I looked at him. "I'm not pushing anything," I said. "I'm protecting a child, something neither of you seem interested in." Madeline's face twisted. "I trusted you." "No, you used me," I said. "There's a difference." And then she shoved me. It wasn't hard, but it was enough to make me stumble backward into the storm door. My shoulder hit the frame, sharp and fast. "Hey," a voice called from the side. Eric. He had just pulled up from work. He ran over and got between us. "Back off," he said, stepping between me and Madeline. "Stay out of this," Dad barked at him. Eric didn't flinch. "Touch her again and you'll be dealing with more than CPS." I was already dialing. My hand didn't shake. Madeline stormed off the porch, cursing under her breath. Dad followed, looking furious. Not at her for being violent, but at me, for not keeping quiet. That night, I filed a police report. Eric was listed as a witness. I handed over the footage from the security camera, including the push. By Monday, a restraining order was issued for both Madeline and my father. Leo never asked about them, and I never volunteered a single word. It started small. A folded note under my doormat. No envelope, no signature, just black ink on lined paper. "You broke the family." The next morning, I found another one taped to my windshield. "Kids don't belong with traitors." Then came the phone calls, always from blocked numbers, always around midnight. If I answered, silence. If I didn't, a voicemail, breathing, then a click. I stopped answering. I logged everything. I sent it all to my CPS caseworker and my lawyer. They were taking it seriously. So was I. But then things got creepier. Someone posted on the community parenting group under a fake profile, "Has anyone seen this woman with a child who isn't hers?" My name, my address, a blurry photo of me and Leo at the library. Then Instagram DMs from accounts I didn't recognize. Screenshots of Leo's face with captions like, "Enjoy it while it lasts." "He doesn't belong to you. Wait until the judge sees who you really are." I changed every password I had, locked down my profiles. Eric installed new cameras around the house, backyard, side gate, driveway. We bought motion lights and an extra lock for the back door. Leo started waking up at night again, not crying, just up, staring at the corner of his room or shuffling down the hallway with his blanket trailing behind him. "Bad dream?" I asked him one night. He nodded. "You want to talk about it?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, "I don't want to go back in the closet." I froze. "What closet?" "At Mom's, when I was loud." That was all he said. I hugged him tighter than I probably should have. The next day, I emailed CPS with everything: his statement, the messages, the notes, the photos. My lawyer suggested a formal hearing to reevaluate custody status. We were building a case. And then the email came from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: "I should have found you sooner." It was from Thomas Brandt, Leo's father. He wasn't dead, or gone, or unreliable like Madeline always claimed. He'd been trying to get custody for years. Court petitions, voicemails, registered letters, all ignored. Madeline had blocked him on every platform, claimed he was unstable, refused supervised visits. Attached to the email was a file, over 60 pages of documentation, call logs, emails to CPS, legal motions filed and buried, proof of drug tests passed, rent receipts, certified letters returned unopened, and photos, baby pictures, birthday cards, all returned to sender. He ended the message with, "I'm not trying to take Leo from anyone who actually cares about him. I just want to help. I want to see my son. And I want to make this right." I sat in the kitchen reading it over and over. Leo was in the living room building a tower out of cereal boxes. He looked up and smiled. And for the first time since all this started, I didn't feel alone. Madeline wanted me to feel surrounded. Instead, she just helped me build an army. The courtroom smelled like old carpet and nerves. Leo sat in the hallway with a volunteer child advocate and a coloring book, his little legs swinging under the waiting bench. I gave him a tight smile and a squeeze on the shoulder before stepping through the heavy doors. It was time. Madeline sat across the aisle in a tailored blazer too bright for a custody hearing. Her hair was perfect, as always. Our father sat next to her, jaw locked, arms crossed. He didn't look at me. Their attorney was a silver-haired man with a polished voice and an oily charm. He stood first. "Your Honor," he began, "my client, Miss Kinner, is a hardworking mother whose only crime has been asking her sister for help during a difficult time. What we see here is not abuse or neglect. It's a misunderstanding. A bitter sibling dispute, exaggerated beyond reason." I stared at him, unmoving. "Elise Kinner," he continued, gesturing toward me like I was a piece of evidence, "has no legal parental rights. She is not Leo's guardian. She is not his mother. And she is, quite frankly, attempting to hijack custody out of personal resentment." I didn't look at Madeline, but I felt her smirk. Then it was our turn. My attorney stood, calm and deliberate. "Your Honor, we have evidence of repeated abandonment, including video footage of the child being left unattended at 4 in the morning. We have physical evidence of bruises, medical records, school absenteeism, and eyewitness testimony that Leo expressed fear about returning to his mother's care." She handed over the packet, thick, color-coded, time-stamped. "And we also have corroborating statements from Leo's pediatrician and school counselor noting signs of emotional neglect." The judge flipped through the folder slowly, brow furrowed. And my lawyer said, her voice steady, we would like to call Thomas Brandt to the stand. Madeline's face finally cracked. Thomas stood. He wore a plain button-up shirt and held a folder in his hands. His voice shook a little at first, but he got stronger with each sentence. He told them about the letters, the emails, the unanswered calls, the court motions that went nowhere, the birthday gifts returned in the mail unopened. He didn't cry, but his voice broke when he said, I just want to know my son. I've done everything I could. But Madeline made sure I couldn't get close. Eric testified too. He spoke clearly about the night Madeline shoved me on our porch, about how Leo clung to him after the fact, about the way he wouldn't sleep without checking that the front door was locked. I was the last to testify. I didn't say everything. I just said enough. I talked about the on-call chart, about the meeting Leo disrupted, about the gala I missed and the note on his backpack. I told them how he said he didn't want to go back in the closet. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. The judge deliberated for nearly an hour. When she came back, she didn't waste time. Temporary custody is awarded to Mr. Thomas Brandt, she said, with supervised visitation and no contact orders placed against Ms. Madeline Kinner pending further investigation. I exhaled so deeply I felt dizzy. Then came the explosion. Madeline stood up like a switch flipped. This is outrageous, she shouted. He's manipulating you. She's lying. Elise is always lying. She's been jealous of me her whole life. You're ruining everything. The bailiff told her to sit down. She didn't. She kept yelling until the judge ordered her removed. As she was escorted out, she turned and looked straight at me. You destroyed this family. I didn't answer. I just picked up my bag and walked out, knowing for once that someone finally believed me. I moved to Portland that August. A small house on the east side, quiet street, big windows, enough trees that I couldn't see the neighbors from my kitchen sink. Eric came with me. We both needed a reset, and his remote job made it easy to say yes. Mine had to be negotiated. I took a step down in title but gained full flexibility and my sanity in return. Best trade I ever made. We kept it simple. No welcome party, no social media announcement. Just boxes, fresh paint, and a house key that didn't come with any family strings. For the first few weeks I didn't unpack much. I let the silence stretch out. I learned how to cook without rushing. I took long walks. I drank coffee slowly. I went whole days without checking my email more than once. I slept. Not just passed out. Slept. Deep, uninterrupted sleep. No phone calls in the middle of the night. No guilt texts. No mysterious bruises to photograph. Leo called once a week. Always on Saturdays. Always the same way. Hi Aunt Elise. I drew you something. He'd hold up a picture, robots, frogs, sometimes both. Sometimes he'd ask what Portland looked like. Sometimes he'd ask what I was eating. One time he asked if the trees here were nicer than the ones in Denver. They're different, I told him. But they're still green. Still loud when the wind's strong. He seemed happy with that. One night in late September, I got an email from someone I hadn't heard from in over a decade. My mom's older sister, Aunt Jill. She'd been estranged from the family since I was in high school. The subject line just said, I've been watching from afar. The message was short, but it hit me hard. Elise, I saw what you did for Leo. I know what Madeline is like. Your father too. I left for the same reasons, but I didn't have the courage to take anyone with me. You did, and I'm proud of you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Jill. It felt like someone had lifted a layer of weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I started unpacking the last few boxes after that. I hung up art. I planted basil. I added Leo's drawings to the fridge like I used to as a kid. Eric called it the calm. I didn't think peace would look this normal, he said one night as we sat on the back porch. Me neither, I said, but it was real. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in my life, I knew I hadn't broken the family. I had just finally told the truth about it, and that was enough. The call came on a Tuesday. I was halfway through making soup, real soup, the kind that simmers all afternoon and fills the house with thyme and garlic, when my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't saved but knew immediately. Thomas. I wiped my hands on a towel and picked up. Hey Elise, he said, voice strained but still steady. I hate to ask, but I had surgery last week. Recovery's been rough. I could use some help with Leo for a bit. Just a few weeks, maybe less. I didn't hesitate. When can we pick him up? He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath the whole day. Leo arrived that Friday, suitcase rolling behind him, arms flung around my waist before I could even say hello. You still have the octopus? He asked, half grinning. I think he missed you, I said. He slipped back into our life like he'd never left. Same routines, same bedtime jokes. Waffles on Saturday, blanket forts on Sunday. Eric taught him how to make scrambled eggs with extra cheese, and Leo insisted we only use the curly parsley, not the flat one. One night after dinner, he asked if he could paint the side of a cardboard box and make it a rocket ship for the porch. We let him. It stayed there for days, soaking up rain and imagination. He was thriving, more talkative, less guarded, but he still checked the locks every night before bed. We documented everything, meals, routines, a medication list Thomas had sent. CPS dropped by once just to check in. It was quick, uneventful, boring even, the way child welfare visits should be. About 10 days in, I got an anonymous email. No text, no subject line, just a message. You won't get away with this. No name, but I didn't need one. The tone was familiar. I reported it immediately, forwarded it to my lawyer and to Thomas. He responded within the hour. Already flagged with the caseworker. Keep documenting. I've got this. And he did. Leo went back home 3 weeks later. He hugged Eric, then me, then the octopus. He didn't cry. But when Thomas pulled up, he lingered in the doorway. I like it here, he said. You're always welcome, I told him. Anytime. He nodded and whispered, I know. The house felt quieter after that. Not empty, just still. 2 weeks later, I was invited to Leo's 5th birthday party. It was small. Just Thomas, a couple of other kids from his preschool, a folding table in the park with cupcakes and juice boxes. Leo wore a paper crown. He danced like he was on fire. At one point, he ran over and took my hand. You have to come see the bubble machine, he said. It's so cool. So I followed him, barefoot in the grass, watching him laugh until he hiccuped. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe until then. I didn't need custody to protect him. I didn't need permission to love him. I just needed the courage to never look away. We both made it out. We both survived. And now we were free.